All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today, as you can see, Brandon's not here, but I'm joined by two guys from the Wolves Fanatics show, Michael and Skylar. Thanks for joining me, guys.
I appreciate you having us on, man.
It's good to be here, man. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, it's so I'm sure you guys, everyone watching here, can tell we're going to be previewing this weekend's game, Oklahoma's inaugural game, just to open up SEC play. Very familiar opponent. I think we played in pretty recently. I don't remember the exact year, but it's definitely within the last
2016, and I love that you bring it back up. It's fine. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. If anybody remembers, it was the Baker Mayfield comeback of the ages in the fourth quarter. That's about all I'm going to say about it.
Yeah.
But it's good to be back. It's good to be back. Hopefully, we can redeem it a little bit here coming up in, I guess, 5 days.
Yeah, not too long from now. Before we get into any more of this game preview, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think about what's going to happen this weekend. Make sure to go hit these guys with a follow on their YouTube and social media. I'm going to link everything down below. Let's get started. Everyone here knows about Oklahoma Sooners. We all have different expectations, as I'm sure there are with Tennessee fans. You've got some that no matter how well you do, nothing is good enough. And then you've got your other ones that even when it looks very bleak, there's a positivity coming out of it, just like every other fan base. But tell us a little bit about how Tennessee's been doing. Obviously, you guys have been killing it over the first 3 weeks. Basically, looks like you're just making it look like a cakewalk to play college football at this high level.
Mike, you want to take this? Yeah, go ahead.
Tennessee this year, of course, going into the season, expectations were sky high. I mean, it was all the talk was about Nico coming in. It's his offense this year. He's been the talk for Heisman since the spring game, I believe, or maybe even going back to the bowl game that he got to start in. So expectations were sky high there. And then, of course, to talk about James Pierce Jr. being the number one player in college football. And so far, the team has handled those expectations pretty well. Hadn't played the best competition so far, but just the way that Tennessee has dominated the first 3 games has expectations even higher, if that's possible, to start the season. And you've got people talking that they've been talking playoffs pretty much since the season started, but now it's, hey, we might have a shot at going to a natty. Not going to say win it yet, but we've got a shot at least getting there. So yeah, expectations are just sky high right now for Tennessee.
I'm going to piggyback off of that. I think really you kind of seen this in motion when obviously the recruitment of Nico kind of developed. But there's a lot more to the team than Nico. And I think that's what's kind of driving this hype train a little bit out of proportion. I think obviously you finally have the quarterback that you feel like fits the system for Josh Heupel. But what's easy to kind of overlook is the fact that people still want to call this offense air raid. And that's just not the case. If you look at our statistics, we run the ball way more than we pass the ball. And Josh Heupel lets it be known that, if we don't run the ball, we don't throw the ball. Like it kind of opens up the game for us. But other side of the ball defensively, Tim Banks, Rodney Gardner, and the boys, Willie Martinez has completely flipped around the secondary, which was atrocious the last couple of years, really 3 years under this staff. And honestly, you didn't know what was going to happen from there because, with change, with new faces comes inexperience. But in Tennessee's case, that inexperience has turned out to be probably a little bit better than even the less skillful, experienced guys, if you know what I mean. So between having the offense, which you knew you had dating back to 2022, 2021, you kind of get back to that. No knock on Joe, just the middle of the field wasn't there under him, unfortunately. So you got a quarterback now that can see the whole field. He's still young. He's still going to make some mistakes. We've seen that against NC State. But more than anything, I feel like you're seeing a Tennessee team kind of benefit from maybe a overrated NC State team, which I'm not going to complain about because it finally we're being talked about in the national brand and it's positive. So many years that's not been the case, but this weekend is so big, not just for the programs in Oklahoma and Tennessee. I think it's really big for Josh Heupel going back home, and I'm going to be there. I think it's going to be really cool to kind of see the welcoming. I kind of had thoughts that maybe it could be a hostile environment, but based on what I'm seeing on social media, man, it looks like Oklahoma is going to welcome Josh Heupel back and with open arms, and I'm really looking forward to see that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if they do anything like, a thank you video before the game and then get hostile for 60 minutes and then, wave goodbye at the end.
Right
It'll
on.
be
Well,
interesting to see what that
Josh
looks like.
Heupel seems to think, according to his press conference, that Oklahoma fans are going to be quiet while
Yes.
Tennessee's on offense, just out of respect for him. But I've got a
Not
feeling
the
it
case.
won't be that way. So.
Not the case.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought that was a good little yes jab. Maybe it wasn't a jab. Maybe you're just trying to have some fun. But last week, at least for in the Oklahoma circles, a big talking point after the Tulane game was how the student section just decided to dip after about halftime because we were up 21. I guess it was like parents' weekend, so a lot of
Oh,
people were heading
Mm.
out to celebrate or go. It's students, do whatever students do at a major college. So thought that's what he was taking a little shot at, but it's a good fun joke at the end of the day. One thing that we talked about here in this show was how Oklahoma and Tennessee going into the season. I know you guys kind of just put out the expectations of where fans thought or what national media thought. But we thought Oklahoma and Tennessee were actually pretty level
I
and
agree.
like where their expectations, like where their highs, the highest of highs could be similar and the lowest of lows could be the same. So you brought back a lot of good defensive players. You guys just brought up James Pierce. We brought back a good two great defensive players, but the national name is Danny Stutzman, our star linebacker, both with very inexperienced and 5-star 2023 quarterbacks, and Nico and Jackson Arnold. So at this point, I think because the offense is clicking at Tennessee, it's what makes Oklahoma fans, while we're always confident, maybe not as confident as we would have been if your offense hasn't been basically putting up 50 points with seemingly no issues, while Oklahoma during the Houston game struggled a ton offensively, looked a little bit better versus Tulane, still had some things to fix, but now hopefully it's expected that we're getting a lot of our starters back going into Tennessee game, so we're all hoping that makes a little bit of a change, bringing back Nick Anderson as our starting wide receiver, one of our starting wide receivers. Branson Hickman potentially coming back, who's a transfer center coming from SMU, if I remember correctly. So it's a lot of things that fans are trying to kind of will into existence here for the Tennessee game, because this offense is definitely what has us all maybe not as confident as we would be if it was any other team.
Yeah, and just an outsider's perspective here. Do you think that some of Oklahoma's offensive struggles early on, maybe after losing Jeff Levy to Mississippi State, trying to kind of get a feel for the new system? Not that it's a new system, but the new offensive coordinator under Oklahoma this year.
There's probably definitely some growing pains. The biggest thing that we've talked about is the shuffling of the offensive line.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it's looked like for Tennessee this year in recent history, but it seems like with Oklahoma over the last couple of seasons, we've lost guys on the offensive line, like 3 of the 5 guys that were starters to either graduation or transfer portal. Last year, like the big name was Caden Green hitting the transfer portal, who was a really good freshman in the 2023 season. Now we're basically replaced all 5 guys for this season, so there's been a constant shuffle. I think that's really been what we've all noticed is the lack of continuity within a group of 5 guys might be a bigger struggle rather than Seth Luttrell coming in, because Seth did call the bowl game, and while it is only a bowl game now and we can't hold it to the standards of what a bowl game was maybe 10-15 years ago, I mean, you were still playing a very good Arizona team. They're putting up numbers offensively, but there was a mistakes that ended up biting him in the ass for that
Yeah, I'm
game
glad you brought
specifically.
up that offensive line. We actually had a guest of mine. He's a friend of mine back when I used to live. I lived a short stint out in Oklahoma City. His name is Ryan Colley, but he brought up the fact that the offensive line not only is inexperienced and young, but the fact that it's been a shuffle. At times playing 12, 13 different guys on the front, making Jackson Arnold's job just that much more difficult. Not just being a new player. Obviously, I think he's a true freshman, right? If not a redshirt freshman, coming in trying to learn this offense, but now he's having to look at a different guy in the huddle any given moment and not knowing who's going to be protecting his blind side at any given play. I mean, I could not imagine being Jackson Arnold, not really knowing who's your guy. I mean, that's something that I'd like to talk about Tennessee here for just a second. We talk about Nico, but that's something that this staff here at Tennessee's done so good is not just recruiting new talent. We've got like 4 of our 5 starting offensive linemen are like 5-year seniors, like 5th-year seniors. Like they are old, veteran, experienced. Cooper Mays, our center, is just the heart and soul of this offensive line, and he makes the people around him that much better. The only, I would say, unexperienced guy that we got is a transfer from LSU. His name's Lance Hurd on the left tackle there. And he's probably the biggest guy we got. I mean, he went viral in, I think it's the NC State game when Dylan Sampson did his touchdown celebration. Rest in peace, Rich Homie Quan. But he, 53, you just see him coming up and he towers Dylan Sampson. And people are like, who was that guy? And, so that's something that Tennessee has done very well, is putting Nico behind people that they know they can trust to protect him. And I don't feel like Jackson Arnold's had that same luxury.
Not through the first 3 games, and to an extent, I don't think it's so much the recruiting on the Oklahoma side.
Right.
It's injuries have really been
exactly
a kick in the nuts this year.
And didn't y'all lose another guy against Tulane, if I'm not mistaken?
We against Tulane, the offensive line.
Maybe not. I was thinking that somebody went down.
We lost everyone this season.
It's not good. It's not good to be saying that 3 weeks into the season, my man.
Yeah. I mean, coming into the year, game 1 we lost Branson Hickman, the starting center. We were down our right tackle, Jake Taylor, who was a redshirt sophomore. It's supposed to be like his season to finally take that spot on the offensive line. Really, the only consistent guy has been a transfer from Bechi Nweyu. He's our right guard. He's the one that's been the mainstay, and then everyone else has kind of just shuffled around him to hope something comes together due to injuries and what have you. But I think that's with Oklahoma where we're gonna focus on is how does offensive line play against the Tennessee defensive line, because we're as Oklahoma fans, we're really confident in our defense, which is very different than it was 5 years ago. It was the opposite. This probably would have been a Patrick Mahomes versus Baker Mayfield like game where each quarterback's putting up 500-600 yards because our offense was just that potent at the time.
I remember that.
But now it's going to be like we're confident that our defense can maybe force Nico to make some of those freshman mistakes because Brent Venables is just that good. And our new defensive coordinator, Zach Alley, is basically Brent Venables 2.0 at disguising coverage and making it harder on very inexperienced quarterbacks. But we expect the same from you guys.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we were talking about yesterday with Ryan is, I do feel like this is going to absolutely be Nico's biggest test as a young quarterback because Oklahoma's defense is good and y'all returned just about everybody on the defensive side of the ball, especially in that secondary last year that was so good at forcing turnovers. So I do think that Nico should have a good game in this game, but he is going to make some mistakes. And for our sake as Tennessee fans, I hope that those don't result in turnovers that could cost Tennessee the game. But absolutely, Oklahoma's going to throw some things at him that are going to kind of trip him up a little bit because, as good as he has played, he's still a freshman. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he handles this challenge, not just against a good defense, but in a hostile environment, because this is the first time that he has played a true road game since he has become a starter. Of course, he played in the bowl game against Iowa, played in the Dukes Mayo Bowl against NC State earlier this year. But other than that, it's been home games. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he handles this weekend against Oklahoma.
And to backpack your point about the offensive line against Tennessee's defensive line, don't get caught up in James Pierce Jr. Look, and this hurts me to say because that dude is a dog, and I think he'll be a first-round draft pick. But the thing that he does is he requires so much attention that you tend to forget about the other guys on our D-line. I'm not just saying this as a Tennessee homer. We legitimately rotate about 12 defensive linemen nonstop throughout the entire game. Rodney Gardner, the defensive line coach there, has done such a good job just adding bodies. He didn't even care if they were good a couple years ago. He just wanted bodies. And he's been able to develop and coach that to now you focus so hard on James Pierce Jr. You focus so hard around 27 that you forget about number 19, Joshua Joseph's on the other side. You forget about Omar Norman Lott. A guy that's been there for the longest time is Big Amari Thomas right there in the middle. Elijah Simmons, number 10. We've got so many big bodies that they focus so hard on James Pierce Jr. that you just forget about those other guys. And I know they're not going to be watching this, and I don't mind to tell you, just to give you guys a heads up, it's probably not going to be James Pierce Jr. And if he does, then it's probably a bad day for Oklahoma. But just be looking out for those other guys on the defensive line that maybe you just don't scheme for because you're so worried about James Pierce Jr. We've seen it 3 weeks now, 3 games. James Pierce Jr. statistically is really not done anything, but that's not stopped this defense from gaining about 10 sacks in 3 games. And it's not been him. It's been everybody else. And I told Michael in the off season, we never really seen it as a like an A, B, or C team on the defensive line. We really have a 1A, 1B, 1C. We have just different packages, and they come in at different times, and you never know. I mean, you'll see one package play a first down, and you'll see that same package play a third down, and they'll just keep changing it up. The front 7 for defense for Tennessee is pretty solid. If they can contain that, get the ball out of Jackson Arnold's hands very quickly. And one thing that I'll say, if he can get his running game in, because I see here, he's y'all's leading rusher too. And maybe that's because the running game for Oklahoma has not been the greatest, or maybe he's just that good with his legs. I haven't really done a ton of scouting, but I'm afraid that we'll be so pass rush heavy that we may not fill our gap assignments from rushing, that if he can get his legs involved in the game, that could hurt Tennessee in the long run.
To give you a glimpse of the run game, Jackson Arnold is that good at running the ball, but there's also been a very inconsistent pattern with the running backs. And it's not so much the players themselves. It's, again, the offensive line. Like,
I feel like you'll have a young guy in the running back room that is pretty solid, but it doesn't look like he's the number 1 back. Am I missing that? Or
so Taylor Tatum, he was last year's the 2024 number 1 running back in the class. He is starting to get more and more reps. Last week was probably the one he got the most carries.
He's a dude.
He is talented. And he's a 2-sport athlete for Oklahoma. So he'll be playing baseball come springtime. So hopefully
he's my kind of guy.
Hopefully we can get that talent translate to just as well on the diamond, because now that we're in the SEC, we understand that it's football, and then probably baseball is number 2, not basketball in this conference.
Right on.
So got to get that going a little bit, which Oklahoma's been improving in. But offensively, we've talked about Nico a ton, the offensive line. Who are the weapons that Oklahoma fans should be looking at thinking this guy needs to be bracketed?
I mean, it is absolutely number 1, Dylan Sampson. I mean, he is our workforce out there. And we talked about it yesterday. Dylan Sampson is one of those guys that you watch him and you're saying he is on one level and everybody else is just there. So he is absolutely the guy to watch out for, not just in the running game. They've been really involving him in the passing game a lot this year. If you watched any Tennessee, especially against NC State, they ran a lot of shovel passes, just dropping back and just kind of tossing it to him right behind the offensive line. And he just goes to work, making guys miss, breaking tackles. I mean, we had I believe it was a 3rd down and 17, ran a shovel pass to him, and he just did all the work himself, picked up a first down, like a gain of 20-something yards, and then scored on the very next play. So he's one. And then I'll name one other one because I know Skylar has got a couple that he probably wants to name as well. I'm going to go with Chris Brazzell, transfer wide receiver from Tulane. Nico has shown that he really trusts him just by how much he gets him the ball. And he's a really good threat, short and medium range. But we saw this past week against Kent State, he can fly down the sideline too. And Nico just hit him in stride for like a 50-something yard touchdown. He is an absolute weapon out there that I think is really going to get going as the season goes along.
Yeah, Michael hit the home run answer with Dylan Sampson. That dude is possibly the best back in the league. He reminds me so much of Alvin Kamara, but he is the number 1 back. That's the problem we had with Alvin Kamara back in 2015 to 2016 is he was probably our best back, no doubt about it, but he was sharing carries with Jalen Hurd. Mm-hmm. And so he never was really featured under our offense, where I feel like Dylan Sampson is that dude, and he's getting utilized as such, which I think can unlock his fullest potential. I don't know how Oklahoma's run game or rush defense is, but I can confidently say Dylan Sampson's a 100-yard rusher a game. It almost doesn't matter who he plays unless it's Georgia and we get shut out. But that dude is just he's steady Eddie back there. I'll give you a rundown. I'm not going to go through every player, but like the tight end room as a whole, this new offense, I say new offense, this new style of offense that we're running this year, we're really getting the tight ends involved in the pass game. It doesn't matter which one. It could be Ethan Davis, Miles Kitselman, or Holden Stays. Holden Stays is a transfer from Notre Dame, and then Miles Kitselman, who is thought to be kind of a lost cause and just a kind of a run blocker. He's the transfer from Alabama, but he's honestly been our best statistical tight end thus far. So just the tight end room in general, I think Ethan Davis is probably the most talented, but he's also the youngest one. He's the same age as Nico. Brew McCoy is our most physical wide receiver. If he gets a catch, he doesn't go out of bounds. He will run you over. That's just the way he is. He reminds me of a Juwan Jennings. You can kind of tell where I grew up watching Tennessee football. I keep comparing him back to that team. But Butch Jones did bring in a lot of talent. But he's just a guy that wants to punish you. If he has to get a first down, he will get it. Dante Thornton is the deep threat. I don't really see him in the intermediate game so much, but defensively, there is some guys to like. It starts with Keenan Peely, the linebacker. He is the leader. He got hurt in game 1 last year. He's the transfer from BYU. He's back, and he's here to really make a statement for his last, I would say, his contract year for the NFL.
I mean, it's like his 8th season of college football.
Yeah,
so, I mean.
Yeah, for sure. So him and Arion Carter at the linebacker positions were pretty deep at linebacker this year. So you'll see those guys kind of rotate with Caleb Perry and is it Jeremiah T-Lander? I think that's his name.
Yeah, T-Lander.
T-Lander's really solid dude. Same age as Arion Carter as well, but secondary. Ricky Gibson the third. He didn't play in the opening game. I think they did that on purpose, but he's a very young cornerback. He's physical. He will try to push that outside guy out of bounds every chance he gets. He probably is good for a pass interference call once a game, but that's just the type of ball he plays. He's kind of mean and dirty, and that's the way he gets it done. You're going to see a walk-on. I think he's still a walk-on. But what's his name? Gosh,
Will Brooks.
Thank you, Will Brooks. He's our safety. He got the pick 6 against NC State, which really flipped the game. You're going to see him in the back there, and you're also going to see a true freshman, Boo Carter, sub in and out with another strong safety of ours, and could be making some plays. You're going to see a lot of corner blitzes and safety blitzes coming off the edge, probably on the blind side. As long as the offensive line for Oklahoma talks about that and picks that up, should be okay, but we're good for several of those per game. And that's the thing about Tim Banks. He likes to bring pressure from anywhere and everywhere, even if he has to kind of lose a man in coverage to do that.
Yeah, and I'll throw out one guy on the defensive side since we swapped over there. One guy that I love is Jacoby Thomas, transfer from MTSU. He doesn't start, but we rotate so many guys on the defensive side of the ball, no matter if it's D-line, linebackers, or defensive backs. Pretty much everybody has a chance to play. And he is just an absolute ball hawk. Wherever the ball goes, he's going to be somewhere in the mix of the tackle. He might not be the first one there, but he's going to be helping out. And he is so aggressive that actually against Kent State Saturday, he got a targeting call, not for hitting, head to head or anything, but just because he speared the guy. And it was like the biggest tackle of the game. And it got called targeting because, hit with the crown of the helmet. That's, safety issue, not to protect the player that got hit, but to protect him from hurting himself. But he's just an absolute dog that goes out there and he's just looking to make big play after big play.
One thing I'll say about him, as well as some of our other corners, like Ricky Gibson, these guys are surprisingly really good at tackling in the open field. We've seen it a lot. NC State trying to get the ball out of McCall's hands, and so he dump it to the flat. And you can kind of see that out route coming from the inside slot man. Our corners are really good about beating that one-on-one block, rushing up and tackling that man at the line of scrimmage. That is something that I've not seen our cornerbacks do in quite some time at Tennessee. That is something that we've really improved on. And I think to go with the substitution thing, I think our coaching staff's kind of realized that even if you're not the most talented, if we can get fresh guys in nonstop, that's better than having a talented guy really tired by the third quarter, because you've seen it at Tennessee. We'd be in ball games even when we were really bad. We'd be in ball games in the third quarter and just completely melt in the fourth quarter because we're gassed. So this coaching staff's really made it an emphasis on the defensive side of the ball to sub nonstop, keep those guys fresh. You'll see our guys not even be really 20 plays per player. I mean, they really do a good job of subbing out everything. So sorry to cut you, but
that was a great rundown on both
thank
sides
you.
of the ball. I think Dylan Sampson was the guy that Brandon and I talked about in the preseason. So we did like a breakdown, ranking running backs in the SEC, quarterbacks, and Dylan Sampson was the one where when we looked into the Tennessee running back room, no one was talking about him as a player going into the season.
Still not.
Probably still, still not. But I think if I remember correctly, he was RB2 or RB3 last year.
He was technically RB3. Yeah, he was technically RB3, but really was pushing for that. It almost became like a 2A, 2B with him and Jabari Small, because Jalen Wright kind of locked down that room. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, he came in as a third string. If you don't know this story, he kind of threatened to enter the portal in the offseason before that season, because he kind of knew, like I'm not going to get to play as much as I want to. But credit to the staff here. We were able to keep him around. He's a Louisiana native. He kind of talked about going back to LSU, which kind of scared everybody here. But we were able to lock him down. And, man, I'm so glad we did, because you see now just how it's played out for him. And he's really taken over the range. He's also something that's underrated by him that not everybody knows, especially in the national perspective. He's a vocal leader. He's that guy you think it's Nico or you think it's Brew McCoy, but no, in the huddle, even when he was the third string running back, he would be the guy getting the hype in the huddle, clapping it down, bringing it down, whatever. Dylan Sampson's been that guy ever since he was like a redshirt freshman, true sophomore. So,
yeah, this game's to me is now we've talked about it again on this show. It's going to be Oklahoma's defense versus the Tennessee offense, because of guys like Dylan Sampson. Because everyone's probably going to go in, and we're going to be at game day, and it's going to be Nico. What can he do against this Oklahoma defense? Danny Stutzman. And then on the reverse side, can the Oklahoma offensive line handle the defense of Tennessee? That's Oklahoma's question mark, and not that it might. It doesn't sound like it's maybe your weak point, but if anything's going to be talked about for Tennessee more so than the other thing, it's going to be your explosive offense being able to make those plays that they have been over the first 3 games versus this Oklahoma defense.
Michael, do you have – so my key, I guess, to the game for Oklahoma is we kind of struggled. I know it does not look like it. We really struggled against the 3-3-5 that NC State was kind of throwing at us. And I don't know why that was, but I feel like if Oklahoma makes it a exclamation point to maybe bring in a 7th guy into the box and shut down our running game, maybe have to play some man against our wide receivers and kind of force us to be a home run shot offense only. Because like I said, if you can shut down our run game, I'm a little worried. I don't feel like it's not that I don't trust Nico, but I've never seen him in like a have to pass situation. Like it's kind of been a whenever he wants to pass situation, if that makes sense. We run the ball, we throw the ball, and I would honestly say that's a 60-40 split. If y'all can get us to like an 80-20 split passing, I'm worried as a Tennessee fan. I think that is probably the biggest key to the game defensively for Oklahoma. Michael, what do you say about that?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head there as far as defensively for Oklahoma. I like to focus on the offensive side for Oklahoma here. The key is going to be not stopping Tennessee's defensive line, because I said yesterday, I don't think there's any team in the country, and that includes Georgia now, that can just totally stop Tennessee's defensive line. But if you can contain the Tennessee defensive line enough to give Jackson Arnold some time to get the ball out and even open up running games for your offense, because I mean, that's a big key that Ryan talked about with us yesterday was Oklahoma has got to get some sort of running game going to open up that passing attack. If you could contain that defensive line just enough to open up that running game or open up windows for Jackson Arnold, I think that our secondary is just inexperienced enough that Oklahoma can take advantage of that. But I think those are keys for the game, offensive and defensively, for Oklahoma to win the ball game against Tennessee.
Yeah, this game can't come any faster here, guys.
I'm
We've
telling you.
been more
Yeah.
than excited to start the SEC, and the fact that it's Josh Heupel coming back, Tennessee coming to the Palace, and I'm pretty sure if I remember before the season started, I don't know if you guys watched Pat McAfee at all, but Peyton Manning was on the show and said he was planning on being in Norman for this game. So there's going to be a lot of pageantry around this
Let me,
Saturday's game.
if I can say this, if y'all think Tennessee fans are crazy as it is, and it's not even because I mean this with no disrespect. I don't really think it's because Oklahoma's just a juggernaut of a team. I think obviously we have a little bit of saltiness from 2015, 2016 just as fans. But I think you look at our schedule in particular and you see what our fans are. If we leave Norman with a win at prime time at night, you're going to see a fan base that's starting to truly believe that we could go achieve something special. And that could get a little crazy for everybody here now. Just because, when you look at the preseason schedules and, unfortunately, as the Tennessee fan, you look at Georgia and you look at Alabama and you're just kind of like a L for Georgia and like a maybe for Alabama, just because you did it last time they were in Neyland. Like you look at it and you're like, maybe Alabama, but probably not. But then you look at Oklahoma and that's like the game. Like that's the game. Like that changes if you go 9-3 or if you got a chance of going 11-1 to 12-0. I don't know. It's probably not going to be 12-0.
Yeah, we talked about it in preseason. This game was absolutely the swing game.
Yeah.
Not just for Tennessee, but for Oklahoma as well in this game. That's what makes this game so big coming up this weekend.
It's so important for both teams.
It's
because y'all don't have the easiest first year in the SEC either.
No.
And when you have to start it with number 7 now, number 6 now, Tennessee, and I think y'all still play Texas, of course. Do y'all play Alabama as well? Who do y'all play?
Alabama's our second to last game. Luckily, that one's at home. So we've got you
Auburn
guys to
next.
kick off SEC. Then we'll be at Auburn next weekend. Bye week, Oklahoma, Texas game at the Cotton Bowl. Then after that, here I've got it on my phone, so I'm not. And so then we've got South Carolina at home, Ole Miss at Oxford,
Ole Miss
Maine, whatever. Missouri at Missouri, Alabama at home, and then LSU to end off to cap off the season in Baton Rouge.
You didn't get really any bottom 5 or 6 teams in the SEC. No, you got all mid to high tier teams.
Yeah, I mean the worst one is obviously when you look at them is South Carolina, but even their defensive line might be the best in the SEC.
They turned around and beat Kentucky in surprising fashion, and then probably, arguably, if their quarterback doesn't get hurt,
beat LSU.
If their quarterback doesn't get hurt, could have. What a surprise! That's probably, obviously look at it now and it's probably not so much, but that's probably that surprise team that we just all kind of banked on not being good this year. And then who knows, they could be competitive. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But I think that just goes into the point, though, what a massive win this would be for Oklahoma to kind of pole vault them into the SEC. I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, it'd be not so fun of a feeling for Tennessee if we came back with a loss because it kind of be more of the same. I'll say this. Tennessee, Josh Heupel's had a problem with going on the road at night for whatever reason. It doesn't matter how good the competition is. I think of South Carolina 2022 when we were all but a guaranteed spot in the freaking playoff without even having to go to the SEC championship. And you lose to South Carolina ugly. And then you lose your quarterback on top of that. It was not good. Last year was Florida.
Hendon Hooker got hurt, or was he hurt the game?
Yeah, Hendon Hooker got hurt in that South Carolina game. That's the one where he tore his ACL.
And it's because he was just trying so hard. I mean, you're down by 25. Your defense was giving up every play a touchdown. And he's trying to make a play to kind of stay in the game, makes a cut. Obviously, everybody's seen what happened. But then last year, Florida. I mean, I don't know what in the world. We just can't win in the swamp for some reason. But not just that game. You had Missouri, too. That's kind of like we call it BVS here. It's called battered Vol syndrome. And it's where we just have this back of our mind feeling that it's not going to work out. Like it's always going to happen to where nothing works out for us. I went through it during baseball World Series when we were losing to Florida State in game 1 by a lot. I'm like, God, man, we just can't do it. And then lo and behold, they made a comeback. So maybe that's a sign of things to change. But until they prove me wrong, I still have a really bad feeling about going on the road at night. Norman, Oklahoma, I know it's going to be rocking, and I cannot wait to witness it. I'll be there Saturday morning. I think my plane lands at like 9:45, which I thought it would be like the 3:30 ABC game. I thought it was going to be, nice. No, it's the 7:30. So I'll be busy all day Saturday doing something. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, but I don't know. I know Skylar has seen the video. I don't know if you've seen it, Jose, but Ron Slay said it best on a podcast this past week. He said, just don't let Tennessee win no national championship in football. Because the Vols fans will come out of the woodworks, and he said the earth as you know it will no longer be the same. And he could not be more right about that, because since that 98 title that Tennessee has won, it's just been nothing but disappointment after disappointment. And Skylar said it, that battered Vols syndrome is a real thing. And if Tennessee happens to win a national championship in football, man, the chaos that will ensue from Vols fans coming out of that misery. Yeah, he's right. The earth as you know it will not be the same. So
well, Oklahoma's standing in the way. So
yeah, that's what you got to expect from a passionate SEC school like that, and such a it seems like it's a proud fan base. But yeah. Last thing before I let you guys go, score predictions for this weekend.
So I said it yesterday on our podcast. I'll stick with it. I think it's going to be a very competitive game. That the score that I predict is not going to exactly entail, but I've got Tennessee 38, Oklahoma 24.
I am actually going to change my prediction from yesterday, just because I don't see it being high scoring on both teams. I think you made a great point. Oklahoma's defense is probably their strong suit, and I've seen that firsthand. And I think Tennessee's strong suit, believe it or not, I think our strong suit is also our defense. So I'm going to go with Tennessee 31, Oklahoma 17. We haven't given up a touchdown defensively all year. I see Oklahoma changing that, but I just don't see them going crazy with it. I would have to kind of see that firsthand. Jackson Arnold, not going to say he struggled against Tulane, but just a little bit of what I watched, he got rushed in the pocket a little bit. And if he got rushed in the pocket with Tulane, I can only imagine what it's going to be like in the third and fourth quarter when it's kind of money time. And who knows, at that point, what's going to happen. And so I think 31-17, a 2-score game. I mean, I don't know. It could be Saturday, and I'm eating my words because Oklahoma comes out and wins, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But right now, I think the spread's at 7 on ESPN.
Yep. And
Tennessee is undefeated against the spread this year as well. So I'm going to keep riding with them until they give me a reason not to. So
that's fair. That's what a real fan does there. Good teams win, great teams cover.
That's exactly right.
That's what we've been saying here for the last year, even though we've barely covered over half the games. But my prediction, I agree. I don't think it's going to be very high scoring. Obviously, I'm going to go with an Oklahoma W here.
Yeah,
but I'm going to go 24-21 Oklahoma. You guys are going to score. What I think there's going to be one. Oklahoma's going to create a timely turnover. Probably like last drive, you guys are trying to tie up the game, force overtime, or or win the game with a touchdown. And Oklahoma's thing this year so far has been, and over the last year really, has been timely turnovers. Against BYU, we got a pick 6 to finish them off when it was an extremely close game. We've been creating turnovers like crazy this season, not so much in the past game, but forcing fumbles. So I believe that that's what's going to be the turning point for this game.
Yeah, and a guy that you didn't even touch on that Ryan mentioned yesterday, dude, our Mason Thomas, the plays that he made at the end of that Tulane game, he just took over that game and basically got the stops that they needed himself to seal the deal in that game. So I think that either one of these could happen. Either our predictions could be correct or yours could be. There's really no telling what's going to happen until they get out there and play the game on Saturday.
Well, look, we both kind of in the similar situation as we've done. I think y'all maybe more so than us just because y'all's games have been a little bit closer. But if Nico's in a tight game in the fourth quarter, I don't know how he's going to handle that.
Yeah.
And if you've not noticed, but even against the terrible competition we've been playing, our 2-minute offense right before halftime has been god awful.
Yeah, it hasn't looked good at all.
No, it's been terrible. And then you get one holding penalty on when you're trying to go fast or there's a false start because you know how Heupel's offense is. If you're trying to line up, look, if that happens, I'm not confident. Like as much as our offense is explosive, if we're in a must-win situation in the fourth quarter, down by 3 or 4, I think Oklahoma's of course, they're exactly where they want to be. I mean, but I don't know how. I think that's going to tell us a lot about Nico in general and his growth as well, because we've not seen him every game he's played. I think the point differential is literally like 213 to like 13 or 217 to 13. Like, it is insane in the 4 games that he's played how much we've just blown teams out of the water. And people want to say that's not good competition. Well, look, I'll fill you in. One was Iowa, who was thought to be a top 10 team and had the best defense in the nation last year. And he literally had 3 rushing touchdowns of himself when the team didn't give up a 4 the entire season. And then NC State, who was thought to be one of the leaders in the ACC. Now, maybe they were a little bit overrated, but still, you can't discredit our team because of, their lack of being able to fulfill their goals or whatnot. So, I mean, you got 2 pretty decent teams there. But nonetheless, if it's a close game in the fourth quarter, I think Oklahoma has something cooking, especially with the home field. As a Tennessee fan, as a Tennessee player, you want to do everything you can, right, to get the fans out of it. And if Tennessee can't get that done, then I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw out something that you said yesterday, Skylar. I think if Tennessee wins the toss, they absolutely will choose to receive, so that hopefully they can get the ball and go right down the field and try to take Oklahoma's crowd out of that game early. Because, and you also said this, if the crowd is in the game, that is the biggest X factor that there is. Just the environments in the SEC, the crowd does play a huge difference. And if Tennessee can somehow take Oklahoma's crowd out of the game, then I think absolutely Tennessee's got a fantastic shot, but it's not going to be easy.
And I said that because Nico, as you know, has not played a true road game. So this is his first ever taste of that. It's at night. Norman's going to have all day to get turned, if you know what I mean, for that game. So, it's going to be an exciting one. And, man, all the emotions you could feel. I kind of feel like Tennessee and Oklahoma is already kind of like a rivalry in a way. And in a weird way, I feel like Josh Heupel's kind of like uniting the fan bases, and I don't like it. I don't like it. But I see like Oklahoma fans. They've seen obviously coach's press conference today, and Oklahoma fans are being nice, and I'm like, guys, you're not supposed to be nice. Like, stop. Like, I don't like you guys. No, I'm joking. Y'all been great though, and man, I'm hoping to have a good time there Saturday.
Yeah, it's gonna be a blast. Thank you guys again for joining.
Yeah,
it was an awesome rundown of the volunteer program. Make sure to go follow Vol Fanatics Show. Link is going to be in the description. Twitter as well. So go hit them with a follow. They're growing their channel. So let's try to get them to their next milestone. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe on this channel as well. Turn on the notification bell so you know when we post a new video. And follow us on all of our social medias, also linked down below. We appreciate y'all watching. We'll see you next time.